Good morning, guys, and I hope you are having an awesome day. And here we are back again in ELA. Let's figure out what we got to do today. So, today we will be starting our essay for this unit, which is going to be a character development essay, and we're going to walk through that in a minute. But don't be scared, again, by the word essay, okay? It's a little bit shorter than our other essay that we did, and I'm hopeful that with you picking whichever story you feel most comfortable with, that this whole process can be a little less scary, and we're gonna walk through it together, okay? So, the goal for today is to have the graphic organizer completely or close to completely filled out. I know with finding quotes it might take longer than one class period, so we'll just kind of see how it goes. After you've done your do now, okay, you should have picked whichever story is your favorite. Now you may start doing the graphic organizer and then figure out that you don't want to use that story. You can totally switch it up if you start filling out that graphic organizer and you're seeing that it's not really working. But hopefully the do now has helped you start to think about some of these stories. So we're gonna hop to the graphic organizer, okay, and I'm gonna see if I can make it a little bit bigger for us. It's the same. Okay, so hopefully that's a little bit better. Let's see if we can actually get it even bigger. Okay, that's probably better. Okay. So, we're gonna kind of go through this, and so you also have this on your Google Classroom, which you will be filling in, but I'm gonna go over it as well, just so that if there's any questions, we'll figure it out. So we have character development essay. All right, introduction to this assignment, okay? In this unit, okay, unit 2, we discussed how our actions define us. That was our big question. That's how all of our discussions of our stories went back to. It's like, how do these characters' actions define him? How do our actions define us? In both good and bad ways. Our actions, even more than our words, define who we are and maybe who we will become. Our actions define us when we have to overcome obstacles, both inside ourselves and outside, okay? That's our different types of conflicts, right? External or internal. In this essay, you will talk about how say it with me again, one of the characters we read about and how they handled conflict through their actions. Okay, what was the conflict that they were dealing with? How did they deal with it? Was that the right way or the wrong way? How did that define them in the story? Okay, did they make good decisions and overcome their obstacles, or did they make the wrong decision and step into disaster? Okay, because we've had both. We've had stories with both. We've had stories where people have, through their actions, shown courage and been able to overcome a conflict, like in Rogue Wave. But we've also had characters who have been too full of themselves, made that wrong decision, and ended up in disaster, aka Flight of Icarus, or sorry, wrong number. Okay, so we've seen both. So you're talking about how your character acted and how they either conquered that conflict or did not based on their actions and what their actions define them through the story. That's what this essay is going to be about. So when you think about, hey, which story do I want to pick? I want to think, how am I really sure that this character, acted this way and this was the result, this is how their actions defined them. Okay, that's what I want you to think about when you're picking a character. That's what I want you to be like sure of in your mind, okay? So, right, we have all of these options. We have heartbeat, You have, which was the student who wore the extra shirts, but then decided that, you know, he doesn't want to be, he didn't want to let other people influence him. He was okay just the way he was. Flight of Icarus, again, flying too close to the sun. Rogue Wave, okay, trapped in the boat, had to escape. Thank You Ma'am, right, stole the money, but then made it up to them and had a positive outcome. A police stop changed this teenager's life, which is an article, so if you'd want to use that, about how his determination really allowed him to be put in that place to be thanked by that police officer, or helped, I should say. Or Sorry, Wrong Number. Okay, if you want to talk about how her actions and her disrespect of everyone in her life may have led to her subsequent unalivement. So, out of all those options, what you're going to do next is you are going to pick which one character, okay, one character you're going to be talking about. So what does this look like? It means if you're going to talk about Thank You Ma'am, you're either going to talk about Miss Jones, or you're going to talk about Roger. Okay, you're not talking about both. If you're talking about Rogue Wave, you're not talking about Scoot and Sully. Okay, you're talking about one of them. That kind of thing. So you're picking a story, but you're picking at least one character to kind of focus in on within your story. Okay? Then you're gonna write, what conflict did they encounter? What was their problem? What did they have to overcome? Okay, what was standing in their way in the story? Okay, for every story, it's different, right? With the police stop story, he had to walk to work, okay, 2 hours, I think it was one way. In Heartbeat, right, his conflict was his self-confidence. It was like an internal conflict that was influenced by the outward kind of comments, but it was definitely an internal conflict of him not feeling strong enough, not feeling like he was looking the way he wanted to. So what kind of conflict did your specific character encounter? Then, this is where we're gonna get the information for our body paragraphs, is how did they handle that conflict? Now we know the character, now we know the conflict. How did they handle it? What did their actions show? Okay, and this is where you're gonna get your 2 body paragraphs. So this is kind of what we're starting with, and I'll kind of show you how we're going through. But so how did their actions show them handling the conflict? Again, in the beginning of Heartbeat, right, he didn't handle it well because he was trying to hide. He was trying to add more layers, right? So I might add a quote over here about how he decided he was going to wear more layers. But then I'm going to explain, how does this quote show how your character handled this conflict, either good or not? So then in my explanation, I'm going to say that he was wearing multiple layers, which was not a sustainable answer because he wasn't changing the issue of not feeling good enough in and of himself. Okay, something like that. We are talking about whether the way he handled it, we're explaining it, and whether or not it actually helped conquer the conflict in a good way, right? Quote number 2, okay, so you're gonna find another quote from your character or about your character and how they handled the conflict. For example, later in the story of Rogue Wave, when we see that we see Scoot, who's trapped inside the boat, is determined, right? And she keeps taking her breath and she keeps pounding at that skylight to get herself out, and her being determined and resourceful to do that. Again, that could be a quote from kind of that section of the story. You could go here, okay? And then I'm gonna explain, how does this quote show your character, how they handled the conflict, good or not. Again, I can talk about how Scoot showed how she was determined to get out. She really wanted to not just survive, but be there in case her brother was hurt. Even though it looked like a impossible thing to escape, she did not give up, and she just kept going to try to escape. So she handled that conflict in a way to conquer it. Okay, so something like that would be in my explanation.